Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome back to Friend Powered Friday Nights, except it's slightly different because tomorrow is actually going to be a super powered Saturday night. We are now live. We are going and going. So since stream stuff is a little bit different, I finally coordinated schedules for my two friends to play Chapter 3 with me tomorrow. That'll be a long stream tomorrow. It'll be very fun. Also, please don't spoil them because they are new to it. Since that's happening tomorrow, tonight I thought I would go over some of the comments from the Half-Human Susie Theory video. Not all of them because there's hundreds and I don't have time for that, but just some of them. And I can respond to some of them and discuss them and stuff like that. And also, hey, I get to show off my new PNG tuber. New version. This is the talking one. If not drawing or playing games, this is just me yapping. The yapping one. It's time for yapping. The upgraded sprites. Yeah, it's just for talking. Just for talking. I actually made this a while ago, and I was like, okay, here's a chance to use it. Yeah, this is just a crazy weekend. I'm probably not going to be able to do an art stream on Sunday either because I will be busy with an animation event. But art streams should happen next week more frequently because I'm in the middle of Deltarune and I've got time to work on it. So there will be art streams, just not on Sunday. I have water and coffee and all that stuff. Probably not the best combination. Also, the music is just looping. If you want a different song on in the background, tell me what you want. I've just got all of chapters 3 and 4 soundtrack here. I like Fireplace, hence why it's on. But if you want something else, points to it. I don't know. Just let me know, and I'll change it. I'll change the music. Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like. Yeah, this is my first time using the talk sprite. This is the yapping one. So yeah. Oh yeah, that's I put that in my usual fan mix. This is just the usual musics. So yeah, because I didn't want to worry too much about what the music was. So if you want a music change, you have to let me know. But yeah, so this is a yapping one. Since tomorrow will be chapter 3 and art will be next week. So yeah, just OST for now, because I think it'll be a little bit less distracting than my usual playlist for art. Again, it's just on repeat until somebody says, "Hey, I want a new song." Anyways, yeah, I saved about 30, 40-ish comments. There's like 800. I ain't going through all of those because some of them repeat. Some of them are just like, you suck, and it's like, okay, I don't have anything to say to that. So I try to talk to stuff about it I wanted to talk about, or wanted to address, or just thought was interesting. And yeah, and there was like one, I think there's only one comment where I was like, this is such an L take, it actually makes me mad. I couldn't find it again. That's probably for the best, so we're ignoring the really shit take one. Which is not even about me, it was about Toby, and that's why, and it was kind of transphobic, that's why it made me mad. Anyways, just OST. This one is really good for a video this big. It's big! Well, oh yeah, there's other stuff that's like, oh, this sucks, but like, who cares, that's YouTube. Like, there's a difference between like, oh, this sucks, and like, a really L take where you're like, oh, this makes me mad. So yeah, so I guess in that sense, yeah, don't give it a platform. I don't even think they were trolling. I just think they had a really bad take, and again, transphobic. I don't want to give space for that. It just made me mad. Well, it won't even about me. Yeah. Gives me more unique. Yep, I'm just yapping. I am doing all right. It's been a pretty good week. I know I haven't gotten to the comments yet. It's been a pretty good week. Alfie's has been very active because she was shedding. I did have a friend over. I have to go shopping for a big event next month, and she was a huge help with that. Thank you, because shopping is terrifying. But that took up a big chunk of... Oh, hi! Hi, Luna. Thank you again. You were seriously such a big help. Such a big help. I told my parents all about the big help you were with my shopping spree. So I feel very set for next month. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out and do that with me. I super appreciate it. So yeah, that's been a whole bunch of, that's been a lot of my week was doing that, which is a good time. But okay, yes, thank you for the help. It was wonderful. Okay, I'll stop with the preliminary yapping and we'll get into actual comments. Again, I just screen capped a bunch. Hopefully I picked good ones. So yeah, you did get to hold Alfie's and eat Japanese cheesecake. They were both good things. And drink the orange Joe. True. Alfie's was very snuggly because she's shedding, so she just wanted to be snugged. It was super cute. And drink the orange Joe. Which, I can't believe I forgot that from memory. Okay, sorry, I'm still yapping. Let's do a comment. Okay, this was top one. Says, of course the creator of the Susie Half-Human comic would have a word on all of this lol. True. This, the first thing I did with this theory was that comic way back in the day. And I'll say that's, some people brought up, hey, why didn't you talk about your comic, in the video? And that's because the comic is fan fiction. And I didn't think that was super relevant in this case because I wanted to talk about mostly stuff that was in canon. And especially like the Growing Pains comic, for that one there was like this transformation aspect to it. Mostly I put that in for story reasons, like, you know, adds on extra angst, and also was basically to explain, okay, these story elements of why this infidelity went unnoticed until now and why Susie moved to hometown when she did. But that's all fan fiction. Even in canon itself, Susie's answer is just, we moved around a lot, that's an acceptable answer. So my fan fiction, not super necessary for just talking about the idea in general. I'm glad people seem to really like that comic, and I'm glad about that. I've gotten some people that are like, can you continue it? And I'm like, I don't have any other ideas. That was the extent of it. If I do come up with other ideas, I'll do it, but I don't right now. I'm too busy with Deltarune. But yeah, so basically this is the word on it, and I thought about making a video. Because while usually if I have like a theory, it's usually about how something of the story will go, so I want to do that through storytelling, and I know how to do that best through like animatics and comics. That's usually how I do things, and like that's how I did it with, like, you know, the Mightier Than the Sword one, or the Deal with the Devil one. Like that's usually how, like, oh, what do I think might happen with this story point? Like I usually just tell it through the story because that's how I think of things. But in this case, I had kind of thought of doing this before, and I hadn't just seen this set on YouTube at all. I've seen it on Tumblr and other places, but I've not seen it on YouTube, so I'm like, you know what, heck with it. I will actually do a theory video on YouTube because, like it or not, that's where all the attention goes. Like, even with my comics, people know about them because of a YouTube dub. So, that is why I was like, okay, I'll bite that bullet. I'll do a YouTube video because that's what people will pay the most attention to, unfortunately. It'd be nice if, you know, Tumblr, Blue Sky, or whatever got YouTube numbers, but it doesn't. So, yeah. And I did pay attention to it, yeah. Not as much as other things, but that's all good. I don't know, maybe I'll stick with comics in the future, because I think people seem to like those more, from me at least. They got nicer attention than a video did, but it's, you know, that wider audience, you're probably going to get more attention that way. But yeah, usually I do it through comics. Try to change it up this time. Anyways, that's why I had a thought on it. Although, other people have also posted about this, so it's not just me. But I did want to do that. Let's do another one. Okay, how about the Snowgrave scene when the player put the ring back to Noel? There is a splash of red in both patched and unpatched version, which seems very likely to be blood. And we know she can't be half-human because both Carol and Rudolph are both monster. Monster, but I'm going to say monster. So this kind of comment came up a bunch. Basically, why didn't you mention the Weird Root thing? And I actually went back and rewatched that scene just to double check on it. The reason why... Yeah, Blood infamous for taking fancy patterns and glowing. And good evening, thank you for coming. Basically, the reason why I did not mention the Weird Root scene, I am aware of it, I was not unaware of that scene, is because I do not think that scene counts as irrefutable proof that Noel bleeds. Because I think the intended interpretation of that is abstract and not literal. Now, you can argue either way that it could be literal, but I don't think it is a solid, yes, she was definitely bleeding in that scene. Like, if we saw her overworld sprite and there was like red on her hand in the overworld sprite, I'd be like, yes, that is definitely her bleeding. Literally, all monsters bleed because she is not half human. Yeah, but basically, looking back at that scene, and especially like the previous iterations of it, you know, the first iteration we had was the wilting rose, which was changed very quickly when people got the wrong connotation of that, and it changed to the single red pixel, which when I saw that, I immediately clocked, oh, that's a placeholder. That's a placeholder for something else. And I was right, because then we got the third iteration, which was kind of the glass shattering / root spreading effect over the black. Yeah, red may be the soul's essence of all sorts. And then we cut to the scene, you know, where Chris is beating the crap out of the soul in the bathroom. Basically, I'm looking at that scene, and especially like the follow-up scenes later, where we have like the red pixel on the black kind of growing over time. And that, to me, is meant to be an abstract interpretation. And especially an abstract interpretation of that we have seeded part of the soul into Noel and are going to be able to control her in some means directly in the future. I think that was the intended idea behind that scene, especially since, again, we have this abstract imagery of it rather than completely literal imagery. If you want to argue it, maybe she could be bleeding in both, but again, if it was supposed to be literal, I think we would just see it on her rather than this much more symbolic abstract take. I think the intention of it was basically something way more like sinister and frightening than just, oh, she's bleeding. That's kind of a difficult thing to explain in the video. Like, that's kind of a track off of something else. That's, again, as it says, this whole other discussion. And I didn't really want to derail with, what about Noel? And being like, well, I don't think that technically counts, but you could argue that it counts, because some people do think that she's bleeding there. I don't think that's how it was supposed to be interpreted. Basically, it's, once again, with blood, it's complicated. But I think the intention of that scene was more about the soul and, you know, that intrusion onto Noel through a symbolic abstract means than literally the thorn is making her bleed. And even in that sense, if you want to be super literal about it, like, basically it starts with the one red pixel. I think if you think of Noel in the church, or try to think of her or whatever, and then later, by the end of the chapter, the red has grown slightly. That is not how blood would work, especially for like a small thorn prick. It would coagulate, whereas it's growing larger over the course of the chapter seems to indicate that is, we put something of the soul there, and that is growing. That is a way scarier and like has bigger connotations for what might be in the future than just, you know, we put the thorn in and she's bleeding. So that is a lot to say that, like, okay, this is why I did not include this particular bit in the video. There's a lot of complications around it, and I don't think it necessarily is good enough proof that Noel was bleeding in that scene. Again, if we saw that on the overworld sprite, I would be like, yes, definitely, that proves it. But that's not what we got. So that's a complicated way of saying that's why I did not include that scene, even though I was aware of it. Alright, let's try another one. I believe Susie was definitely raised among humans, both because she knows about how to clean the blood in Chris's room, and it takes her a while to realize what the hammer was. That does seem quite possible. Hello, thank you for coming. That does seem quite possible. Like, that's where a lot of the hints are. That, you know, she seems to have more familiarity with humans than monsters, especially with, again, how she reacts to Gerson's thing. When did I say I wasn't going to do this? I don't remember if I said I was going to do this or not. Maybe I changed my mind. I changed my mind pretty early in the week, if that's what I said. I don't recall that. Sorry. I'd have to go back and look. I thought about doing this actually a while back. Earlier in the week. Basically, yeah, I think it's quite likely that she was raised among humans. And let's see, chat unpause. But in that sense, that still raises a couple of other questions. Yep. Either way, here we are now. This raises a couple of questions because, yeah, regardless of whether or not Susie is part human, she could have still been raised by humans. I think that's what a lot of people think. And honestly, like, if she had said that, like, oh, I was raised by humans, I was the only monster in a town full of humans, sort of thing, or I was adopted by humans, then, like, if she had said something like that, I think that would make perfect sense for some of her behavior, and people would totally accept that and be like, oh, this is why, you know, people have treated her badly, is because of where she was raised. I think that would be completely logical and not need the half-human part, to the point where I'm kind of surprised that she hasn't just said so yet. Yeah, I'm kind of surprised. Like, if this is the case, where she was raised among humans, and there seems to be hints towards that, I don't know why she wouldn't just say so, because I think that would be totally believable. Like, she does not say where she was raised, who's taking care of her right now, and I find that a little bit suspicious. It's a Toby Fox game. I find that a little bit suspicious that she just doesn't mention that at all. It feels like there is still something she's hiding. And especially in terms of, like, okay, you know, if we assume that she was raised by humans, that's what she mostly knows, and people were cruel to her because she was a minority, and people do not treat minorities well. It's then a little weird that she would get to hometown, which is like an all monster town, and be like, oh, things are going to be exactly the same as everywhere else. People are going to, you know, hate me and want me gone and all that. And, you know, she was on the bench crying and all that stuff. So there's some element that she is not talking about. I think it would definitely make sense if she was raised among humans, just with the way she acts. And I feel like it's a little weird that she hasn't said so yet. So I feel like we're going to get more of that in the future. I would hope anyway, just because, like, the adults were cruel to her too. I want to know what their deal is. What is their deal? It could be quite interesting, yes. Okay, another one. I'm leaning heavily towards the answer being monsters just have blood in Deltarune, simply because it would add even more evidence to the theory that Undertale Sands is from Deltarune. In the same chapter where it's raining somewhere else gets reprised as well, basically confirming this, or at least heavily implying this. I think Susie bleeding was meant to just finally reveal it. I did get a lot of comments to the effect of, have you ever thought about the fact that monsters just have blood in Deltarune? Yes, I did. That's why the very first, like, thing I did, where I was like, okay, it's one of these two options, and one of the options is maybe monsters just have blood and Susie is not special in that regard. And I think if you're just looking strictly at the evidence, that is the more likely option than just by virtue of being the less complicated one. Oh no. That was another ask I didn't want to talk about, was another reason for knowing how to clean up blood. She's the only purple dinosaur monster. No. So yeah, I didn't quite get people being like, have you considered that monsters might just have blood? Yes, I did consider it. I think that's quite a possibility, yes. I think that is the more likely possibility, just by virtue of being less complicated than the other one. Yeah, the only one that deals with that. If you considered something boring, I mean, I have. I think it would be a perfectly reasonable explanation. I guess because, again, trying to tie these two things together, because I definitely think with this recent thing with it's raining somewhere else versus, the place where it rained, I feel like we've sealed the deal on, yes, Sans is from Deltarune, and Undertale Sans is from Deltarune. I feel like that's almost canon at this point. So, and we'll get more into that as well. But, what was I saying? But basically, I think what it depends on is the big reveal of Susie bleeding at the end of the chapter. Do you think that is a reveal about the universe itself for everybody, and that ties back into Sans? Or do you think that is a big reveal about Susie specifically? Could be both. But yeah, I definitely think that is the least complicated answer, and does tie into Sans, but I have doubts on that, of course. And it's also a matter of, even if all monsters have blood in Deltarune, and the bleeding thing is, like, you know, not unique to Susie, I don't think that the crux of the argument is just on whether or not monsters have blood. I think that raised the question, but I at least tried to in the video talk a bunch about, you know, how Susie looks at herself, how she talks about herself, more than just, you know, whether or not monsters have blood. Because it could be either. Counter argument to the human papyrus theory, a lot of monsters have hair, like Undyne and ears, the Dreamers. He just knows that hairs and ears exist because of the other monsters. It's just that simple. Could be that. We'll talk a bit more about Papyrus. I know that is definitely the weakest part because that is the most out there and doesn't have much in the way of evidence. Yeah, there is no explanation for the fire elementals. They just don't. I remember that being a talking point later, is that monsters can't have blood because some monsters are ghosts and fire elementals. Well, apparently some can. But probably not fire elementals. Probably not ghosts. That would take some doing. It would be difficult. Yeah, it could. Basically, it's like, I'll talk about this a bit later, but it depends on what kind of reveal you think Susie bleeding was. Yeah, Papyrus knows those things exist. Like, he obviously knows the ear in here, but just the jokes about, oh, I have ears in here. Again, they could be just jokes. That is the Occam's razor explanation. But it's a little weird that he, like, talks about having them, like, on himself. Just a little weird. Although I think there's some other things to talk about later. So the trussel of bones inside Papyrus's house is scoliosis. So that, I would say that is probably the biggest evidence against, oh, Papyrus is secretly human, is, you know, we hear the trussel of bones. So unless he's got, like, a xylophone he's been playing, we're probably not hearing the bone trussel through, like, flesh. That would be difficult. So, yeah, the bone trussel reference, probably strongest evidence against, like, Papyrus being just a guy. The only other thing would be, it's a joke, you know, knowing that, oh, it is Papyrus because it's bone trussel. But poor Papyrus with scoliosis. Papyrus is ready to hatch out of his old human form. The skeleton is ready. The skeleton comes from humans. Soon they'll see my real form. The cool buff one. Without muscles and just bones. But yeah, that's probably the biggest thing against human Papyrus is his joints pop every time he moves them. Just like me, for real, for real. He is currently a wet skeleton. Soon he will be dry. He's got to get out of the skeleton bath. These darned mortal coils. I'll tell you what, these darn mortal coils are a pain in the butt. He was smart. He got rid of that. I thought that was a funny one. Okay. 250. In defense of that, Chris looks disturbed too, so I think that both monsters and humans get uncomfortable around dust, blood, rotting bodies in general because they're all signifiers of death. This is in regards to Gerson's hammer being found. Yeah, this is probably something I did not do well enough in the video, is that I think it's not just Susie freaking out because she was like, oh, I don't know what a monster grave is, even though Chris picks up on it. Chris looks disturbed first. They know what it is, and Susie doesn't know what it is first, but I think they're both freaked out because this is like the equivalent, like, it's supposed to be buried. This is the equivalent of, like, finding a corpse in the pastor's office. That would freak you out. It's not, I will say it's probably not the same as, like, ashes, you know, finding an urn of ashes. Like, you know what that's supposed to be, but the way monsters do things, they do, you're supposed to bury it. So the fact that it's not buried is like, wait, what the hell? So yeah, defense of that, Chris looks disturbed too. They're both disturbed because that should be in the ground and it's not, and that's very weird. But Chris does pick up on what it is first. It takes Susie a minute to realize, oh, this is a grave object. Yeah, honestly, back in the past, I did not think that Alvin would, like, dig up his father's grave. I was wrong on that. No, I think that probably is typical. They said that they basically take the monster's dust and put it on an object and then bury it. So it kind of makes sense they have, like, you know, a glass case for it to keep the dust with the object and not, you know, loose in the ground like I originally drew. Of all the things to be wrong about, I was wrong about Alvin desecrating his father's grave. Good grief. That's also possible. He might just not have buried it. That's actually the most likely thing, is that they acted like it was buried and it was just never buried. That's a little bit better than him digging up the grave, I think. That's true. He's in a position to fake it more than anyone else. So he might have just held onto the object, held onto the hammer, and didn't actually bury it. But he's telling everybody, yep, I sure did bury the hammer here. I sure did follow, you know, the rules of you know, funeral rites. No, keeping the corpse in his desk is not an improvement. Okay, yeah, cover-up seems more likely. Alvin definitely had hang-ups about his father. I'm glad I got that right. I'm glad at least I definitely got that right. All right. Another comment. I think Toby just wanted to have both blood and dust to have shock value, so Lightner monsters both bleed when hurt and turn to dust when they die. More comments of this stuff of like, okay, you know, they both bleed when hurt and turn to dust when they die. Possible? Again, it depends on whether you think Susie bleeding is supposed to be a big reveal for this universe or just for her. Toby loves doing stuff for pure shock value. It's very early desecration. Also, again, if you guys ever want a music change, let me know. I'm just letting it loop until you're tired of it. Whoop. And I'll probably talk about this a little more, but I think there's a weird way in the way that bleeding thing was revealed compared to how it could have gone another way. Oh, chapter 4. Let's see. I'll pick that one. Here we go. That's a nice song. For the shock value. Okay, is Susie half human? Is Susie half dreamer? Because the answer is yes. She's halfway to being adopted. True. She, like, please, whatever family she's with right now, please get her away from it and with a good family. 10 hours of screaming and farting. Did I click twice? I just clicked on it because some kind of weird way. Did it show up weird in the thingy? Good grief. I might have to turn this down. My little guy's going crazy. He's going crazy. It looked like... Oh, did I skip a comment? I don't think so. Nope, I did not skip a comment. It's the same comment. Susie ran away from her family. But yes, she should be adopted. I do find it interesting that, like, it seems like Susie is kind of slotting into Asriel's place as, like, a big sibling of Chris. Oh, he did weird and I did the joke. Oh, I see. Okay, good. She's halfway to being adopted. Please, get her a better family. Get her those pancakes. Please. Whoever is looking after her now is sucking at it. Which, again, who's looking after her? Who's doing it? But yeah, I do find it interesting how... Yeah, she's filling the holes death left in Noel's life, too. She will be everybody's cool older sibling. And also, you can kiss her. And that's okay. Probably. Anyways, yes. I do like how she's, like, very quickly becoming, like, a part of the Dreamer family. And probably the Holiday family, too, whether Carol likes it or not. Oh, yeah. Yep, okay, I'm going to do the arrow keys. It's a little easier than the clickies. God, it's going to be nuts if we finally see Papyrus and he has skin. That's part of the thing. I'm like, I can just see the fandom throwing an absolute fit. Because it's like, oh, we finally see Papyrus and, like, it's just some guy. It's just some guy. And people are like, what the hell is this? Again, this is the least likely thing to happen. But It would be extremely wild. And I still want to know why we haven't seen him yet. What are you hiding from us, Tricky Tony? Carol needs a swift kick to the shin. Yeah, if her home life is bad, then I like how she saw what Tori and Sans had going on, prefer to go back home over it. Yeah, that was rough. What if Papyrus is played by Jack Black? Oh, I'll accept that. At least as long as it's not Chris, one of the Chris, the annoying Chris. I forget. I'm stupid. But, I don't know, it'd be really funny. And again, I find it kind of weird how, no live action movies. The Knight is secretly kidnapping everyone for Undertale. Jack Black is motion captain. The annoying Chris, that's right. I find it weird that, like, we meet Sans, and he's like, by the way, only human in town, I want you to meet my brother, like, alone in our house. Just go do that, because he needs friends. And I'm like, well, why would you say that to the one human in town? I don't know. Even from chapter 1, I found that suspicious. Why is Papyrus not going out and talking to anybody else? What's going on with him? Like again, why is he not talking to anybody else? And then why is Sans think, oh, you know who should go talk to my brother? The weird, creepy human teen. Sans, why do you think that? Have you not talked to anybody else about that? Maybe he has. Yeah. Similar to Undertale, too. Yeah, that's true. You can ask about meeting his brother in chapter 2. I always forget how that goes because I usually ask him about Papyrus. I don't think there's a way to do live action Undertale, I'll be honest. I think it's meant to be a game. Like it would be cute, though. I'll never... That's super suspicious. Anyway, I'll check if he's open. Sans, what are you doing? He's weird. Oh, and he likes screwing with us. Okay. Another comment. I think it's impossible to draw conclusions from the world building because fantasy monster biology could work however the story needs it to, but narratively it's compelling with how it parallels Chris and how it screws with the prophecy. Also, I was so into Dogs of Future Past as a kid, so thanks for that. Well, thank you. I'm glad you read Dogs of Future Past, commenter. But, yeah. I will definitely agree with this that, like, for Toby, world building, not his priority. Like, he basically focuses on characters and narrative. That is what takes most of his attention. World building, it's like, he does it in as much as, like, it's important to the story. And this is not like a dish on that, like, oh, your world building sucks. Like, because characters and narrative should be, as I know as a kid, I'm old. That's my Gerson quote. I'm old. Yeah, not a lot of worlds to build, but basically, especially timelines. Toby is like, fuck your timelines. I ain't saying when anything happens. You figure that out. But his design philosophy is not very big on the world building, and there's probably holes here and there. Yeah. Yeah, basically, again, when world building happens, it is for the narrative. It is not just for the sake of it, which is really hard for, like, fan creators like me. Fans, I think, really love stories where it's like, oh, this is a world I can play in. Like, that's why My Little Pony was super popular, because you had all these, like, set rules that then you can go and play with. That is true. We don't know what Darker Than Dark means. It's a little different from what we anticipated. I forgot my timelines. I know. Don't forget your timelines are messed up. But, yeah, it's basically, yeah, monster biology will work however it needs to for the story. And that is why I think it would be narratively compelling. I think it would be an interesting thing to explore for the characters, for the narrative. And I think that's a little bit more important than, like, what does this follow the rules? Is this the proper world building? I'm more interested in, like, is this interesting? Does this further the characters? Do we, learn more about, what their deal is and all that stuff? For being the main villain. Huh. I gotta, what? I think, speaking of, like, Earthbound, I think the next game I'm gonna play is Mother 3. I know I should probably do a poll, but I'm like, I should really do Mother 3. Got to get to that through very legit means. Yeah, he leaves a lot of things open. So I think, we have all these big arguments about, blood or not blood. And again, I think when it comes to Toby, he's going to be like, is this cool for the character? Then I'm going to do it. If it's not, who cares? So I personally think it would be really cool for the characters. I think it would be a neat thing to explore. But, other people might disagree. They might think it's, not really good for the characters. I just think it is narratively compelling. And I think you could potentially pull it off because the rules are a little stretchy. You should do what you want to do. I've done polls on Tumblr, yes. I don't think I've really done much on Twitter. Or not Twitter. I'm not using Twitter anymore. Haven't done much on Twitch. Oh, I just got rid of it. Come here. I haven't really played Poppy's Playtime, and I'm just kind of about it. Sorry. But yeah, basically, I agree. Hard to draw conclusions about world building because that's not Toby's focus. I just think this could be narratively compelling. Others might disagree. They might think it is narratively distracting. And I understand that. Anyways, let's move on. Also interesting to note, Susie has scrapped sprites, as she used to have a cut on her hand and her down sprites and a cut leg after landing in the dump in Chapter 2, yet both were removed and only changed to remove her blood with no other changes. To me, this is a clear sign that Susie bleeding is meant to be a reveal, not just a thing that happens. Yes, this is something I also wanted to talk about, in that one of my arguments against, okay, monsters just have blood in this universe, that's just a thing that happens, it is normal for them, then I don't understand why this was not revealed in a more casual context. Like, because we had these sprites of Susie bleeding after, the roller coaster crash in Chapter 2, and then that was removed, and then it comes back for this extremely dramatic moment, where we discovered things about the prophecy, and she leaves a friggin' bloodstain on Ralsei's cheek. Like, that was some insane imagery, and I can't help wondering, okay, if monsters bleeding in this universe is just a casual observation, and especially meant to tie into showing, okay, yes, this is showing where Sans is from, why did we not show it in a more casual context? Why did we wait until this big moment, this huge, big plot reveal? Because I remember... I watch other people's streams, with first playthrough, and people were freaking out about Susie bleeding. This was meant to be a big reveal. It could have just been something that happens, something that's normal for monsters, and I feel like it's a little bit interesting that we chose a huge dramatic moment to have that rather than a more casual reveal for it. And I don't know, I feel like maybe it's just to be like, This is part of the reveal, and this is part of that, but I don't know. If this is a casual observation about the world, I wonder why it was not revealed in a more casual means than this huge dramatic moment. Same thing as with Sans at the end of his battle. Okay, after playing Chapter 4, Susie's bloody hand instantly made me think of your comic about her being half-human, plus her clear discomfort around drunk Toriel, so when this came up, I recommended. I clicked without a second thought, listening while it worked, didn't realize that you were literally the artist till the very end of the video, and you did your plugs. Love to see it. Anyways, thank you. I'm glad you're doing that. Yeah, she does have, I guess it's kind of covering stuff we've already did. Again, the comic, didn't mention it because it is fan fiction. I wanted to talk about the game itself. Get my coffee. Yeah, and the discomfort around Toriel being drunk, I think also is tying into something about her own family situation. Because again, she was totally set. She was totally set to be like, I'm going to spend another night at Chris's again. Like, she was basically saying, like, hey, can I stay over again? She did not want to be home. And then as soon as, she saw Toriel getting drunk with Sans, she 180'd out of there and was like, never mind, I'm going home. So this is clearly a sore thing for her. And who's mistreating the Susie? Stop it. Okay. One little detail that could also allude to this idea in the game is a line... Whoop. Yeah, I feel for Susie a lot in that scene. Is a line Susie says when you equip her with the Devil's Tail item. She says, Figured I'd grow one eventually, or something close to that. Yes, I remember that. If she had 2 monster parents who presumably are also lizard monsters with tails, why would Susie even bring it up? It implies that due to her presumably mixed heritage, she wasn't certain she would grow a proper tail. While I can't speak for all media with the half-human, half-monster trope, but the mixed offspring have inadequate features relating to one or either of their parents is a common plot point. This idea could explain her sensitivity towards Noel or others seeing her tail. Not an entirely concrete piece of evidence, but definitely something to think about moving forward. Yeah, Susie's just that strong, covering her palm wide open. Oh, good grief. Yeah, does she... I think she just... I think the line she uses is that I would always end up just moving away. Or was it we would always just end up moving away? I'm not sure. She might be bounced around between foster families. She is so quiet about that. But yeah, the tail thing, yeah, I mentioned this in the video. The fact that she seems to really think I should have a bigger tail, because she does have one. Noel sees it wagging. You know, when she's happy. She expresses herself through her tail. But she just does not want people to know about it. Again, why would that be the case? Why is the tail such a sore point for her? And yeah, with the Devil's Tail Swan, she's like, oh, I should have a big tail, but I don't. And it is kind of a trope that, you know, if you are mixed heritage, you're like, oh, I should have this feature, but because of this I don't. Or, you know, I shouldn't have this feature, but I do. It's something that kind of weighs on a character. So it could explain her sensitivity towards it. If it's not her being half human, I would like to know why her tail bothers her. I would like, we've had this come up twice, you know, both times with Noel, basically. Noel pointing out, hey, you've got a tail and it's cute, and she's vehemently denies that. Whatever the reason is, I want to know why she's so sensitive about the tail in particular. I get the feeling that, again, she thinks it should be bigger. I think she kind of wants to lean more into her monsterish stuff, especially with, like, you know, I wish I was Susie Zilla, kaijus are cool, you know, I'm big and strong. She really likes when Gerson says, you're the dragon. I feel like she wants to be more monster than she thinks she is. That she leans into it, and the tail might be part of that. Alright, another one. I'm very on board with the Susie's half-human theory. I thought about it for a while, thanks in part to the comic you made. I feel like the way she talks about a lot of things, one big one being the piano, she talks like people were prejudiced against her for one reason or another. It could be because she grew up in human towns, one where monsters were rarely seen, or it could be because half-human, half-monsters are a sort of taboo thing. Maybe that's why they had to move around a lot too. The Sans thing was always something that tripped me up in that idea, but your stance on it would work. Do I think Papyrus would actually be a human, though? Not really, but I wouldn't be disappointed if he was. I think exploring the ideas of hybrids is kind of cool. I agree. Yeah, I do think Papyrus is definitely the most out there part of it. Again, trying to explain, okay, since I definitely think Sans is from Deltarune's universe, then what the heck is going on with Papyrus? Why do we have all these other questions with him? But yeah, especially with the way she talks about playing the piano, I get the sense that it's like, you know, if the kids are mean to Susie, you know, kids are little jerks, especially to a minority person. That would make sense. The fandom will have a definitely normal reaction. It'll be super normal. The way she talks about it, it seems like the adults were also prejudiced against her, and I'm like, one, who are these adults? I will go fight you in the Arby's parking lot. I will go kick him in the shin. And two, like, why are adults, both kids and adults, being prejudiced towards her when she's just like, again, monsters should be pretty normal in this universe. Why are they treating her so badly? But, like, again, like, people treating her as a joke. The whole thing of you can't play the piano, a public piano, I don't know. That just feels unnaturally mean to me. Like, they told her, it feels like they told her, oh, you're not allowed to play it because you're bad. Like, it doesn't even seem like they really told her why she can't play the piano. She just kind of assumed, well, it must be because of this. Oh yeah, like, I mean, like, Yeah, there was probably monster racism. There was the whole plot of Undertale was set in motion by monster racism, just an entirely different setting. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was an element of that here, just not as dire as Undertale. But yeah, again, the way she talks about how people treated her, it seems like it was not just a thing about kids being mean the way kids are. It seems like it was the adults too. And that's kind of effed up. I want to know why they were doing that. We'll have a normal reaction to racism being canon in Deltarune. Very normal. I don't know. I want a reason other than, like, people are looking at her and saying she's bad. Well, what possible reason for there to be to do that except for bigotry? That'll solve it. We'll get a bunch of celebrities to sing Imagine. Racism solved. We did it. Hooray. I'm thinking of that Lindsay Ellis thing. Racism is over. Oh, wouldn't that? And then suddenly, he wasn't racist anymore. Oh, that would be nice. I think a more I think a more likely version of the Bone Bros being half-human theory would be if only Sans was. Like a monster and human got together and had Sans, then the monster has a kid with another monster making Papyrus. This could explain why Sans bleeds, but Papyrus doesn't. I also took note in the footage that Sans says Papyrus has never seen a human, and I don't know if it's ever specified that Frisk is the first human Sans has seen. Maybe that's because one of his parents was human, while Papyrus is full monster and never encountered a human while entering Undertale. I don't remember all the Undertale Sans dialogue, so I could be wrong, but it's interesting. Honestly, yeah. A few people brought up maybe Sans and Papyrus are half-brothers, and you know what? Sure, that sounds quite possible. I feel like it's a little sad if Papyrus is such a shut-in that from Deltarune he has never seen another human. Like, Papyrus, please leave the house. But, like, them being half-brothers, I don't think that's the worst idea. We could totally roll with that. Then we don't have to worry about all the how the heck, would Papyrus as a human being get, changed into a skeleton monster. That definitely complicates things. So, yeah, it could just be Sans. And then whatever's going on with Papyrus is something slightly less crazy. Especially if he's going to Undertale's universe. So I do not hate them being half-brothers. I think that could work. Yeah, and Undertale monsters have been underground. They don't recognize Frisk, but the idea is that if both Sans and Papyrus come from Deltarune's universe, which I think is what's being hinted. I think it's definitely Sans. Sans has definitely come from Deltarune's universe. We got a ton of stuff for that at this point, especially with, again, the Place Where It Rains song. I think that kind of cinches it. The question is, then what's going on with Papyrus? Because if he is also from Deltarune's universe, why doesn't he know anything that Sans does? Why is he kind of more in the dark about humans and what they're like and all that stuff when he should know more if he's in the same situation as Sans? And I feel like both games have been hinting that they're both from Deltarune, but I would at least say definitely Sans. Papyrus is still more up in the air on that front. But yeah, half-brothers, not the worst idea. I could get behind that, and it would indeed probably be less complicated than what I explained. It's like, unrelated to your theory, but I love the image on the bottom right, like it isn't disrupted while being really expressive. Thank you. I spent a lot of time on those little guys, my little personas, because that's what I mostly know how to do. The scary part was recording voices. The easy part was, like, drawing faces, because that's what I normally do for my job, so yay. A lot of immersion, thank you. Another one. Personally, I think it's more narratively compelling that Susie wants to be human, fits in a lot of the important themes and connections that you seem to hit with this half-human theory, while also serving as a clear foil to Chris being fully human who wants to be a monster. That alone, of course, wouldn't explain why Susie bleeds out, but we've only seen that in the Dark World, specifically Susie's Sanctuary, if I recall correctly, and Deltarune insinuates that they are in some form shaped by the fantasies of the characters and the stories they want to tell. If some of the fan base's sentiments of Dark Worlds as fiction, made manifest by fantasy, hold water, she might only be bleeding in the Dark World because that's how her desires to be human project onto her character, either within or across the Dark World. Basically, she bleeds because she thought it would be cool if she could. Right or wrong, doesn't matter. Crack theories like this really get me thinking about the narrative that Deltarune is trying to tell. Thank you for sharing yours. Yes, I do, at the very least, I hope it gets people thinking about things. It is fun to think about things you enjoy. My main thoughts on this one are that, again, like I said earlier, I think it leans more in that Susie wants to be more monsterish than more human. I think while she wants to, have friends and be accepted and fit in, I don't know if that's towards the human self. And also, I've got a couple comments that were like, maybe she just bleeds in the dark world. I don't think that's the case solely because of the scene where she cleans the bloodstain in the light world. It's something she has experience with in the light world. So I don't think it's just a dark world thing. I think it's across both things. And she does think blood is super cool, but I think she has way more experience with it than just dark world stuff. Yeah, I think she wants to belong in some capacity. She wants to feel like what's making her really excited about the prophecy is like, oh, I've been chosen, I've been picked. I'm not just I'm not being written off. I'm not just a bully. I can do something important. That seems really important to her. And at the very least, like she I don't know if she necessarily wants to fit in. I think she wants to have friends. I think she wants to not be ignored or forgotten or dismissed. She wants to matter. It feels like she's been going through life with people being like, you don't matter, and she's desperate to feel like she has a place, that she's been picked out and stuff, and that she belongs. Yeah. I do think it's more towards a monster self, but definitely there's interesting stuff going on with Susie's sanctuary for sure. In terms of what does she wants out of it. Okay. Ooh. Blah 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 blah. Yapping so much. I need some water. Okay. About all this monster stuff, it's clear that for some reason monster holds the same meaning it has in the real world, despite them basically just being another race in Undertale and Deltarune. For example, kaiju movies still exist. Susie watches one at the end of Chapter 2, and it's referenced in the Susiezilla minigame in Chapter 3. In Undertale, and the genocide route, Sans even mentions multiple times that we are the real monster. Kind of weird, but it's definitely not a Susie-specific thing. As for Susie being shocked by finding Gerson, we're told that a monster's dust is spread over an object they love and then buried. It's not like cremation. Monsters just turn to dust when they die. Dust is essentially just a corpse. This is the monster equivalent of finding a taxidermy human corpse in a coffin in a closet. Part of the shock is probably from finding out the person they were talking to is actually dead as well, though. For the second half of that, yeah, like we talked about earlier, that, and I should have said this better in the video, that it's not like an urn with ashes. This is like finding a corpse. I do find it very weird that they do just poof into dust upon death. It seems like what they're saying. But that was an effect of monsters being magical in Undertale, and they don't seem to be magical here, so I'm like, why keep the poof into dust thing in particular? I mean, again, it's just whatever is necessary for the world building, but it's interesting. Coming from mixed race perspective, sometimes you can want both directions. So her wanting to be more human and more monster isn't outside of possibility. Okay, that is an important perspective. Thank you. I guess it could be either way. Yeah, Gerson's glass tomb is full of dust. And also, in regards to the monster holds the same meaning, I think it's a little bit different in Deltarune because Susie says, oh yeah, I love giant monster movies. I like them more than the giant human movies. Which suggests that there are kaiju movies for both humans and monsters. Which I guess is true of real life, too. There are also, giant human movies, but probably more giant monster movies. But it seems to suggest that there is a more equal amount of kaiju humans and kaiju monsters. They apply it to both people, and then also, gingerbread humans, gingerbread monsters. Again, that's coming back to that, there's Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. I'm thinking of monsters versus aliens. I'm coming back to that thing of, again, there's not much world building. We don't know how humans as a whole feel about monsters as a whole in Deltarune. It's clearly not as bad as Undertale, but there might just be regular old racism. We'll probably never know because we only know what's relevant to the story. But I do like the idea that, even if monsters are still monsterish, to humans that there's a little bit more equilibrium, and that, you know, they're a bit more normalized, maybe not as much as other things, but just slightly more. Just mostly because I think it'd be really funny if they have, like, you know, like, do monsters have human costumes for Halloween? They should. Yeah, that is true. Like, after you kill Sans in Undertale, he does the dust poof thing. Just takes him a bit after the bleeding. Takes him a bit. So maybe that is just the thing that they both share, is they both poof into dust. Which is weird, because the way it was described in Undertale, I was like, oh, they poof into dust because that is a consequence of them having magical bodies as opposed to physical bodies. But it seems like, at the very least, in Deltarune, they have physical bodies, and also they poof into dust. And they just do that, I guess, is how it goes. Whew, okay. Another comment, thank you for bringing this up. Susie bleeding was insane, and everyone took it as, well, I guess monsters bleed now, instead of, how come Susie bleeds and the rabbit kid implies monsters don't bleed? That rabbit kid line cannot be a throwaway. Putting it in the game has to mean something. Usually that's what I see people bring up for monsters don't have blood, is the rabbit kid. I am going to devil's advocate that, and that I actually do not think that the rabbit kid is the best evidence towards monsters not having blood, because the kid might just be wrong. They're like 4 or 5. 4 or 5-year-olds don't know very much about the world. They could just be wrong, especially since it's like a rabbit monster, so they should know one way, or they should have some idea of it. They could just be a kid of, like, you know, they know humans are different, but they don't really get how, and they're just poking the only human they know about it. So the rabbit kid could just be wrong. I don't think it's the strongest piece of evidence. Honestly, if I was going to pick a thing that is the strongest evidence towards monsters not having blood normally, it's Susie cleaning the blood stain in Chris's room, because I do not understand, if blood is normal for monsters, I don't understand why Toriel has not cleaned that already. Because, I don't know, or why nobody's cleaned that already. It's unreasonable to presume they'd be wrong about something so simple and presumably omnipresent. Again, 4-year-olds wrong about a lot of things. They might just be wrong. I knew I had blood when I was a toddler. I'm trying to remember what stuff I believe as a toddler that was wrong. I'm drawing a blank on it now. But, and then, Carissa, why hasn't Toriel put... Yeah, I don't understand why nobody has done anything with the stain in the room. Well, if Chris liked the bloodstain, why didn't they stop Susie from cleaning it? Because basically, you don't even get the option to say no. If once Susie notices the bloodstain, she's like, why haven't you cleaned this? It just used vinegar and hot water, and then they clean it together. They both do it. Like, Susie doesn't clean it up herself. They both do it. I find it hard to believe that Toriel would not know about it. She's in Chris's room. We don't know how long it's been there, but it seems like it's been there for at least a little while. Definitely before the game started. I just, from a character perspective, I find it weird that she would just leave that if she knew what it was and knew exactly what to do about it, if it was normal. Humans love to habitate around their own blood, do they not? It is a weird character moment for me. I can't understand why she, or Asriel, or Asgore, or whoever, you know, depending on how long the stain has been there. I don't understand why none of them would do something about it until Susie shows up and is like, dude, vinegar. I'm sitting in a pool of blood right now. Aren't we all? Wee! Ugh. When I got to that point, that was immediately suspicious to me. Is that Susie immediately clocks it as blood and is like, oh, duh, clean it this way. Again, it is weird to me that was not handled previously. What if it's not even blood? I think it is blood, because Susie says use vinegar and hot water to clean it up, and then they proceed to do that. So unless it's something else that needs vinegar and hot water, I'm going to assume that yes, it's blood, and yes, they just cleaned it. It's Sans' blood. How did that get there? Oh no. So, yeah, that's my thoughts. There is the rabbit kid, and it cannot be a throwaway. But again, the kid could just be wrong. I think the stronger evidence is nobody has cleaned the friggin' bloodstain in Chris's room. I find it hard to believe that Toriel would just ignore that. Yeah, that's the thing, is that Toriel tried cleaning it and couldn't. The issue is that if blood is normal in this universe, if blood is like a normal thing for monsters, why would this be uncleanable for her? She should then know the same thing that Susie knows, because, you know, it's normal. I do wish we knew when that bloodstain showed up, because that would make a difference. Yeah, simple thing to learn. It is weird that it was not touched. Kind of a mean girl. Violent analogies for stuff. Again, that scene has stuck in my brain. Well, that stain has been there since chapter 1. So, it was well before Sans, I would say. Okay. One thing you didn't mention is that when Susie enters the dark world she created, her skin and her hair color becomes a lot more human-like. Chris and Ralphie's palette swaps are a lot less drastic than her own. The first save point you encounter there even mentions how the colors have shifted, so I feel this was something Toby wanted us to pay attention to. Yeah, this was something I did not bring up because I am not sure if this would count as evidence or not, but it is weird that it is weird that the colors all changed for Susie's Dark World. I don't know that it necessarily means anything, that she kind of went to a more slightly, basically the colors shift towards the red end of the spectrum instead of the blue end of the spectrum. That kind of happens with Chris's sprite, as well as that their colors shift more towards a warm purplish blue rather than like the cooler like cyan blue. And then her colors also shift more towards orange, which is the warm end of the spectrum, instead of like the pink, closer to the cool end of the spectrum. I don't think it quite works with Ralsei because he kind of goes more towards the blue end of the spectrum. So I'm not sure. Yeah, you could possibly count that as her skin and hair color becoming more human-like, but I don't know if that necessarily counts in this case because, yeah, it's got to mean something that the colors change. Good grief, that was such a big point of contention when the trailer came out because we saw the color change things and did not know what was up with that. I don't know if that necessarily ties into Susie being half human, but it's a weird detail. Maybe it doesn't have any meaning. In which case, I kind of wonder why it happens. We see that the colors have changed when Susie does her Dark World, and I kind of wonder if we'll see like different color palettes if I don't know, Noel or somebody else makes a Dark World, but I don't know what necessarily it means. Ah, come on, no need to be mean. No need to be mean. Be gone. It is a game decision. It is a game decision. Okay. Also, if you guys want a music change again, let me know. Otherwise, I will keep it going. Okay. What's next? Alright. Just started the video, so you may bring this up yourself. But I'm pretty sure the in-universe explanation for Sans bleeding is that it's ketchup. He drinks it by the bottle. And I wouldn't put it past Toby to include that detail specifically, so he could make finally hitting Sans more upsetting. As for the whole dimension hopping... Oh, we could do Dark Sanctuary, yes. As for the whole dimension hopping skeleton bros theory, it currently remains perfectly plausible that Papyrus wouldn't recognize humans because as of chapter 4, he hasn't met us yet, and we have no evidence he's ever seen a human before. Yeah, I'm fine with whatever. We can go to the Dark Sanctuary. That is a good one. I like you, Dark Sanctuary. There were some comments to... yeah, didn't make a comment. Yeah, I'll say I don't understand that either. I'm like, guys, you can wait and see if it happens in the video. But I'm going to be totally honest. The ketchup thing comes up a couple of times. I do not like that one. I have never liked that one. It is basically taking a interesting mystery, like, whoa, Sans is bleeding in Undertale. Why is that happening? It is taking an interesting mystery and making it less interesting. It's like, listen to Gerson. Listen to Gerson. Irony poisons your story. And he's right. I don't think, like, basically, no. I think it's supposed to be blood. I don't think it's ketchup. I don't think Susie is leaking church juice from her hand when she punches the glass. I do not think this huge dramatic moment where she leaves a stain on Ralsei's cheek is church juice. I don't think it's fruit juice. It's not ketchup. I kind of, like, there was a bunch of comments to the degree of, like, ketchup, and I'm like, no, guys, come on. It's okay to be sincere. Drop the ketchup, drop the fruit juice. It's just blood. They're just bleeding. It's okay to be like, this is a cool mystery. I wonder what it means. Yeah, it makes honestly, like, some people brought up the bone marrow thing. It makes way more sense that he is bleeding out from the bones than, like, there's ketchup in there. Yeah. The implications are annoying. Like, no, it's just blood. Because, like, making it ketchup is less interesting. Is like, unmysteries your mystery. It was just ketchup. Don't take it seriously. No, I think it's worth taking seriously. I think it's way more interesting. Like, wow, like, he's the only one that was, bleeding. What does that mean? So no, I don't think it's ketchup. I don't think it's fruit juice. It's blood. It is less interesting if it's the joke in this case. Like, yeah, there are things that are jokes. This is less interesting as a joke. So there are a bunch of them too. I'm like, oh, must we go over ketchup again? No, it's just blood. I don't think there's. I don't think there's. Yeah. Freak the player out. I don't know about that. Don't forget later. It's possible. Yeah, it's unmystery the mystery because I never wanted it to begin with. Yeah. Yeah, it's dumb. I'm sorry, it's dumb. Like, the whole thing is like, oh, well, I guess, the red thing from Susie's from the fruit juice, because she drank all that fruit juice. She is not leaking fruit juice out of her hand. She is not leaving a fruit juice stain on Ralsei. It's just blood. We can accept this. We can take the mystery seriously. It's okay. You don't have to be weird about it. Yeah. Yeah. Honestly, maybe the ketchup thing would have worked previously, but I don't think it does at this point. Yes, it definitely does not apply to Susie. That's blood. It's not fruit juice. Susie cannot pass the marshmallow test. True. She will eat what's given in front of her. So, I don't know. I never really liked it for, like, Sans either, but now I definitely don't think it's the case. Of all the directions people have gone, and they're like, no, we will cling to ketchup. It's just fruit juice. All these sprites of, like, like Ralsei just being terrified and crying and in Chris's arms with this stain on his cheek. It was fruit juice all along. Please, guys, it's okay to be sincere. Again, it's okay to be sincere. Yeah, that completely ruined the I'm smiling scene. Like, it makes it into a joke. It's not a joke. It's supposed to be a serious scene. It's supposed to be serious. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It ruins the mood. Like, it's okay to take it seriously because the mood is supposed to be a serious thing. These are supposed to be big dramatic moments. It unmysteries your mystery. Yeah, and also the thing is, like, with ketchup, there is no stuff left behind. So, assuming that it is monster food, which I'm assuming all the food is monster food, it would just vanish. Oh no! That's terrible. Totally unmysteries your mystery with the fruit juice. Okay. New comment. I'm not sure about Susie's physiology, but I am absolutely prepared to accept that she spent a lot of time in predominantly human societies, and I appreciate the parallel which such an upbringing would create with regards to Chris. Yeah, it feels like there is something going on where she was raised in mostly human societies, since she seems to know more about that, and that could be an interesting parallel. I just wish that we knew the extent of that. Some stuff has weird food taste. It's like, it tastes like blood. Ugh. Yappity yap yapping. It's hard. Predominantly human societies. And it's rough because we know so little about it. We just have weird little bits, and we're probably not going to get much of it again unless it's story relevant. But I'm like, I want to know what was going on with Susie and like why people were treating her this way. Why nobody would get close to her except as a joke. Just, ugh. Okay, since we're in the ballpark of Undertale and Deltarune comparisons, the question that I ponder over, what would be the difference between Susie from Undertale and Susie from Deltarune? Does Susie have blood and or is half-human? Would that be possible? Does Susie actually exist in Undertale? Is Clam Girl actually referring to Susie from Deltarune? She does say the time you will meet her is fast approaching. Maybe meeting her is literal meeting Susie and not meeting Susie. Yeah, this is a whole other discussion. Something that somebody brought up is that why is the name spelling different between Susie and Undertale and Susie and Deltarune? And this is the only character we've seen this with. Pretty much all the other Undertale characters that cross over, from Undertale, they have the same name. Mostly the same look. They're in different costumes. Some things are changed, like Asgore has less hair and stuff like that. They're all like a little older. Obviously, Monster Kid's older, stuff like that. Why is there a name difference between those two? Just Susie. And honestly, I guess, yeah, I should say anything territory. Honestly, my guess is that if you were going with the idea that Susie is half-human, then the reason why they do have different names is because Susie from Undertale would just have two monster parents, that there is a difference between them there. Yeah. It would change the paradigm. It would be a shocker. I think it could be an interesting thing to explore, especially for Susie's character, but it would definitely put, paradigm between humans and monsters different. Especially different between Undertale because, again, I think Undertale, the relationship between humans and monsters is extremely different than it is in Deltarune. Frisk and Susie and Chris is Susie's. One is... Oh, yeah, I've seen that image. That's a cute one. that we've switched who is the weird one who eats rocks, and the other is the embodiment of hope and changing fate. That's a good picture. That's a good one. Sorry, I missed what was said. Oh, that would be kind of funny if her nickname was also Susie, but spelled differently. Susie's a half-sibling, like the Sans Papyrus theory. Could be. She just has a different parent in this case. Monster parent. Or it could also be Catty. Just, that's more along the lines of Frisk's age rather than the other thing. But then again, usually introducing Susie 2. If Susie's so great, why isn't there a Susie 2? Whoa! I almost called them Frick. It's because I'm talking too much. Bleh, bleh. Yeah, Chris Frick. Bleh. Teased by everyone misspelling her name. No. Chris just can't spell as well as Chris. I'm mostly sad Susie can't spell well. Oh. But yeah, there's also a question of, does Susie exist in Undertale? I kind of assume so, just in an extremely different context. I kind of hope so. It would be very interesting if she did not even exist in Undertale, and it was just talking about Deltarune Susie. I mean, I'm pretty sure the time when you meet is fast approaching, especially since Clam Girl shifts into like goner mode means something. But before then, could still be talking about Susie from Undertale. Yeah, we still know all the things of the fallen humans. Okay. We have evidence of Noel bleeding in Chapter 4 Weird Root, though. It's a little unclear, but very likely. Edit, I could be of the belief that a monster only bleeds when they're not fatally wounded, so if a wound isn't one that's life-ending, they'll bleed, which goes with the fact Sans survives in genocide. Kill count doesn't go up after beating him, just a thought, though. I already talked about how the scene of Noel bleeding is up for debate, because I don't think that's literally what's being depicted. I think it was an abstract one. And unfortunately, I must argue, because Sans does not survive genocide. Again, as we talked about, we hear him poof into dust off screen, and then the kill count does go up. That's how you reach level 20, by killing Sans. He is dead. So he bled and then he died. I think that was supposed to be a fatal wound. Yeah, double whammy misconception. Yes, Sans does die. He poofs off screen. He just was like, oh, I'm dying, and yeah, you're not gonna see it. Bye-bye. Yeah. We'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm pretty sure that comes up and stuff. Yeah, like, I see it come up a bunch in fan art, and it's cool because, it's a really striking visual. But in terms of, did this actually happen in canon? Debatable. I don't know. I'd say it's debatable. I want to see it. I want to see it on the overworld sprite first. Not impossible. It could happen, but I don't think the scene that we saw in the weird route definitely says, yes, she bled in this scene. Because I don't know that it was meant to be interpreted that way. I think it was meant to be interpreted as the soul being in there. Could be both. But I would not say that is a definite yes on she bled in that route. Mostly, talking so much. Having the idea of human papyrus suddenly makes me not want to see him again. Real monkey's paw type shit. Yeah, I can't help thinking. Beware of what you ask for. You just might get it. Why are they keeping him from us? Why are they keeping him from us? Yeah, again, the fact that I lean towards the abstract interpretation rather than literals because we started with an abstract scene, quickly changed it when that was being interpreted wrong, changed it again to something still abstract. What if Papyrus is half human vertically? He's like one of those little anatomy charts in your middle school book come to life. Oh my goodness. Demo, we talked about that previously. I said that's probably good evidence against him being human is the trussle of bones. Good evidence against it. Because that would, unless he's got his xylophone, that would be hard to hear through all the skin. or else scoliosis. Our things are popping. One of my own theories about Susie saying she moved around a lot in Chapter 3 is that she has been bounced around between foster homes. It could be that, or maybe her parents are just struggling to find work. Again, this is something that is frustrating, that Noel isn't bleeding, but we're seeing corruption spread through veins. Yeah, I feel like that is the soul that's spreading into her. I think that was the intention of that scene. But, yeah, a frustrating thing from what she describes of her past is that we do not know, like, where she's been and who she's been living with. Papyrus is also musically inclined. He's playing the xylophone. It's really frustrating how she's, like, especially, like, if you consider, our three main Lightner characters, Chris, Noel, and Susie. For Chris, we know a ton about the Dreamer family, obviously, because a lot of that's carried over from Undertale, but we also just know, a lot about what they're like, what they're up to, what they're doing. Same thing with Noel's family, even though we've just been introduced to them through this game and not through Undertale. We know a ton about, the Holiday family and about their past. We've got deaths just haunting the hell out of the narrative over here. So we know a lot about, Chris and Noel's families and how they, how their families have shaped who Chris and Noel are and how they're a part of, this big story that's going on. We know nothing at all about Susie's family. Not a dang thing. We don't know who she's living with right now. She's got to be living with somebody because she's not homeless. We saw her room. But is she living with both her parents? Is she living with one parent? Is she living with another relative? Is she adopted? Is she bouncing around between foster homes? Don't know. She has not said a peep about it. And I find that suspicious. Yeah. Yeah. Susie discussed her movement like it was just a fact of life. Like, oh, we just moved around a lot. So it was not against her will. Yeah. But it's weird. It's possible. The thing is, we have to find out more, and I find it weird that she has said nothing about that at all. She has not mentioned a thing about her family. At best, we know that whoever she's living with now, one, they're not taking care of her and they're not feeding her because she's going for the free milk and is hungry all the time. So they're not looking after her well. And two, they might have some kind of substance abuse problem because Susie was immediately like, I'm out of here as soon as she saw Toriel drunk. Otherwise, we know nothing. And that is suspicious. I don't know why Susie would not say a peep about who she's living with. Obviously, they are not good people if they're not taking care of her. But other than that, it is weird that we know pretty much nothing. Crocodile from One Piece. Not even a honk. Yeah, she's not homeless. We know she has a place in hometown. It's probably in the apartments. But I just find it suspicious that she won't say anything. And I think it is because she really does not want her friends to know anything about, what's going on with her home life. Like her saying, I really hate it when people don't tell you the whole deal. I'm like, Susan, you are not exempt from that. You are not saying the whole deal either. There's definitely things that she is hiding on purpose. Yeah. So she is living somewhere in hometown, but we don't know who with. We don't know what the family situation is. She will not bring it up, and there's got to be a reason for that. She doesn't hang back if you approach Alfie's because Alfie's outside of class. Yeah, she definitely wants to avoid Alfie's. I think she's really afraid of like what teachers think of her specifically, which is weird because Alfie's is like as scared of Susie as Susie is of Alfie's apparently. Like she'll approach that building. She seems to be really wary around Alfie's in particular. Yeah, that's something I really worry about is if Carol, because Carol would know all this, and this is something I brought up in the video. Carol would know, like, okay, who's leasing an apartment, are there adoption papers or foster parent papers involved or something. She would have access to that information, and she could use it against Susie. And I'm really afraid that's what's going to happen, because Susie was like, screw you, I'm taking Noel to the festival. I'm worried she's going to hit Susie there because I think that is a vulnerable spot for her. Here's the ring portion. Yeah, during the ending, she just wants to go to Chris's house. Who says monsters don't bleed anyway? Maybe we've been freaking out about Sans bleeding for nothing. This is something that came up a bunch in comments as well, which is basically that, well, maybe Undertale monsters just bleed. I don't think that's the case, because if that was the case, we would not be having that whole discussion with what is up with Sans bleeding in the end in the first place. Sans is clearly an outlier there. Basically, okay, I know people keep bringing up Toriel. I can't read or see. People keep saying, oh, Toriel bleeds in her thing. Not clearly. And especially, like, it's all black and white. I don't know what they're talking about. And especially, like, if you're going to argue, oh, it's just, yeah, we sliced Undyne in half. If you're going to argue that, oh, it's just showing up as black on the sprites, then if nothing else, we should have seen Undyne bleeding. If blood was normal for monsters in Undertale, then it would have been on Undyne. That is a big dramatic moment, like a huge, moment. She is sliced in half by whatever weapon you use, and she is like, an anime character. She's doing her big power-up. She is the most determined monster in the underground. This is not, Sans is not that determined. It's Undyne. Undyne is the one who is like, I'm gonna put myself back together from the brink of death because I am just that determined and become like a super boss. If there is any person that should have bled in Undertale, it should have been Undyne, and she doesn't. Yeah, if there's any indication, it should have been Undyne. Yeah, her body starts sliding off. Like, it's pure anime stuff. And if we're going full anime, then there should have been blood. So, yeah, we say monsters don't bleed because the only one we see doing that is Sans with the red stuff. That was part of the dramatic reveal. That was unusual for Sans. It should have happened with Undyne if that was normal, and it didn't. So no, I'm gonna say it is not normal in Undertale for monsters to bleed. We would have seen it with Undyne. It doesn't really make sense that it would happen with Sans and not Undyne, because that is also a big dramatic scene that, she's clearly injured and then puts herself back together. She should have bled there if that was the case. Alright, another one. Personally, I really like the idea that Susie is half human and half monster because of how happy she seems when Gerson refers to her as the dragon in Lord of the Hammer /Dragon Blazers. It feels almost like an analogy to her feeling some kind of body euphoria over being compared to the monster of all monsters and not a half monster with a stubby tail she hates. This was something that we kind of discussed earlier, in that, again, it feels like if Susie wants to be more towards a particular half, it seems like it's the monster half, with the way she feels about her tail, and she is excited that, you are the dragon from Dragon Blazers. I think that definitely has a lot of other connotations, too, in terms of the prophecy. And how she might not be one of the heroes, but is the dragon from the first chapter. But she's clearly excited about. She wants to feel like something big and powerful. She's like, being a dragon is cool. It would be cool to be a big kaiju. Like blood explosion magic. I think she leans more towards that. That is what I want my body to be like. Is a cool, powerful monster. Yeah. I don't think anybody's misconstruing her as a human, but it does feel like it's more towards I want to be considered cool and powerful, and maybe I don't feel like I am that enough, is a possibility. And I should probably go turn off Alfie's lights real quick, so let's bid good night to Alfie's real quick. It's sleepy time for the girl. It's sleepy time. Whew. Yay! She's almost done shedding. She has skins up her nose. She has to get them out. It's so sad. Okay, another one. I think the Papyrus section falls a little flat because when you go back to Snowdin and talk to Undyne when she's there, she'll ask how he can stand the cold, and he'll say it's because he has no skin. He also mentions in the date section that he has no lips, so I do think he's aware, but I love the rest of the video. That is totally fair points. I actually forgot about those lines. Those are good points. The Papyrus section, I would say, is definitely the part I worried about the most, because I'm like, this is really wild and speculative. There's not much evidence to go on here. This was basically me trying to figure out, okay, if half-human stuff is a thing, and we know Sans is from Deltarune, then what is going on with Papyrus? Again, we've got these questions. Why have we not seen him? Why is he being hidden from us? Why is his knowledge of stuff different from Sans? But, I was trying to find supportive arguments to the theory. But yeah, I do agree that the Papyrus section is probably the weakest. It has the least evidence. It is most likely to be something else that I just haven't thought of. And there are other bits in Undertale that could disprove it. Again, as they just said, he talks about having no skin or lips. So it is that is, if there is anything that is the most likely to be wrong, if not the whole thing is just wrong, if there is any part that is right, then probably the Papyrus part is not right. So I don't know. I think that's a good point. It was mostly just being like, okay, let's try and answer some questions about what's going on with Papyrus in conjunction with the rest of this. But definitely I'd say that is, I agree, that's the weakest part. Okay, more with that. The Papyrus examples especially feel like a stretch, but it's interesting to ponder for Susie and how it could tie to Chris's development. Agree. The Papyrus parts are probably the weakest, requires the biggest stretch. I think that would be like the most insane reveal. Like a really big troll in the fandom if that happened. Again, I've been suspicious of the fact that we haven't seen Papyrus at all, and we keep getting teased on him. I don't know why. Probably not. He's probably not the knight, but something is going on with why he's being hidden from us. I don't think it'll be forever, but it is the least likely part that is the biggest stretch for the theory. But I do think it would be interesting for Susie and how it could tie into Chris's development. they are the main characters, so it would be the most relevant to them. But Papyrus is the biggest stretch. I agree. I believe this solely because of the absolute cope that I have that Toby will give Susie the soul for one chapter. Great theory, man. Even if this theory is not true, which, is quite likely it's not. It's a crack theory. I do think that there is a really good chance that Susie will be getting the soul for part of the game. Because, again, it's been really set up that Susie, does not listen to you. She does whatever she wants. You cannot control her, even in the sections where you jump away to her. You have no control over her choices or how things react. And that feels like a rule that's going to get broken. It feels like a rule that is going to get broken for a big reason. I don't think it will be an accident. I think Susie will deliberately choose to get the soul. But I feel like, regardless of whether or not this theory is true, I feel it in my bones that this is going to happen because it feels like it would be a really big deal. Yeah, the lack of agency, horrifying implications, but I think it would be really, really interesting. Except on TV time. Yeah, basically, can the cage be half human? We don't know. All we know is the cage has human soul and human parts. Yeah, the rules can get broken, and I feel like that we cannot control Susie rule is going to get broken. It's just waiting there. It's a big, shiny glass thing that we gotta smash it, or Susie's gotta smash it like the vases. And even then, it doesn't really control Susie that much. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Susie would volunteer to be controlled. This is not something that would happen by accident. It is something that she would initiate, I think. And that she's like, screw this, I'm doing this my way, and my way is going to be this way. And you could get a really interesting, take on the possession from that. Yeah, exactly. And I feel like it would be a contrast to Noel in the weird route. Whereas, we might be gaining this control over Noel against her will. That we have forced ourselves onto Noel and are growing this soul that's going to control her, without her having any say in it, versus Susie being like, I'm going to let this happen, but I am the one making this choice. I'm in control of this, even when I'm giving up control. It is still her choice. So that the girl will apply to both of them on both routes. That's a whole nother thing, basically. But yeah, I don't think this theory is necessary for that to happen. Because I just think that would be really cool if it happened, and I want it to happen. I just think there's a good chance it'll happen. Whether or not this theory happens, which, crack theory probably won't. But I do want Susie to get the soul at one point. Yeah. Yeah, and think about the get dunked on moment, and the fact that she's finally notices that, oh yeah, by the way, that red heart, is that your soul? And then that gets interrupted. I'm like, Susie, what do you think has been happening? Like, I really wonder how battles look to them most of the time. I guess maybe Susie has just not noticed that heart is popping in and out of Chris every time they fight. But, she's finally picking up on it. And, yeah. Basically, I think that, we're gonna get that. Theory or no, I think we're gonna get that. Another question. I wonder if there are any humans left in the world of Deltarune beyond Chris. There was a book about taking care of humans in the library. Could humans be gone in this world and Chris the last human left, or are they endangered? No, I think it's the other way around. I kind of think that monsters are a minority population and that there are more humans than monsters in the rest of the world. It seems like most of the world is kind of built towards humans, with, again, monsters kind of more on the periphery of this. Yeah, the fact that Toriel is using pet shampoo. Toriel, why are you using pet shampoo? Like, is nobody manufacturing shampoo for furred people that much? So it's a little weird. And also, we have stuff like, gingerbread humans, gingerbread monsters, stuff like that. There are mentions of humans that are outside in the world. Even though I did that for Paper Trail, where the humans were stuck in the bunker. I don't think they're I don't think they're the last human left. I don't think they're endangered. I think they are the majority in this world. I think they certainly get along with monsters better than they did in Undertale, but I lean more towards monsters are a minority population than the other way around. That it seems like the world is built more for them. Okay. There's a piece of dialogue in Chapter 4. When you check the fridge photos, Susie seemingly relates to Chris wearing the red horn headband. Just a little thought. Yeah, this is actually something that I did not bring up in the video, but I kind of had a scene from it. I probably should have mentioned it more. I thought that was a really interesting little bit where if you look at the photos on the fridge, you see that one of them has Chris wearing the red horn headbands, and Susie is looking at it and she's like, haha, why are you wearing those horns? It's almost like you were trying to, and then she kind of like gets quiet and is like, oh. Like, she totally gets what Chris was doing. It's like, oh, you were trying to fit in with your family. And she just immediately, like, picks up on that. So, that is an interesting thought. And yeah, they just like me, for real, for real. Interesting thought on that. Basically, Susie relates to Chris feeling like they are an outcast in their society. So, I think that would be the same for Susie. That whether or not she's half human, she at least feels like she's an outcast, and she wants to feel like she belongs with a community. And so she understands Chris's drive towards that. So yeah, I probably should have brought that up a little bit more than some of the other stuff in the video, but I think that is an interesting little moment. I probably won't go back and edit the video because I'm super busy with Deltarune right now. I've got so much to do with that, plus other stuff. And I think I'm afraid it might get like complicated if we try and work in, Susie being the cage by having human parts. Because good grief, that's such a vague description. Like, again, Susie's like, why are they calling you that? That's weird. Like, it's weird even for Chris. And maybe it is weird in that way, in that it can apply to more than just Chris. If it could apply to Susie, it could apply to the vessel. I think that's where most people go with in that, because the vessel also is just made up of parts and could hold a human soul, except it doesn't. It's such a weird description for Chris. It could go many different ways, including that. But I don't. That's a little bit out there. I'm not sure if I would have included that or not, but it's something to think about. Because, again, all of the descriptions for the heroes, probably with the exception of Ralsei, are so vague as to be like, oh no, this could be about multiple people. Paradise. Okay, let's change the music. Where? That'll be for chapter 3, right? Where is that one? Here it is. Ah, nice. Now we're hanging around. Okay. New song change. Let's see. Okay, when using the avoid act against ambulance, Susie says, ambulance? Hell no, like doctors even get me. This could imply Susie has unique or rare biology not well understood by most doctors. I'm glad that this person brought this up in the comments, because this was actually a piece of evidence that I forgot. And then was pointed out later. I'm like, oh, I should have mentioned this. Because, yeah, that is exactly what happened. What happens is that if you do the avoid act, this is what Susie says. This could be that she is making a joke, like, I'm so cool, nobody gets me. It could be that, oh, I was mostly raised in a, human community. Not really many doctors around that, know monster biology. I'm in a minority population. People didn't do that. Or it could be I have very, extremely uncommon or rare biology because I'm half human. Doctors really don't get me. I think like it could be any or all of those. It's I'm mad that I forgot this little bit of evidence, because that is an interesting thing to say. It could be a joke. It could be more than that. But like, hell no, like doctors even get me is interesting, because it implies that Susie has had experience with doctors, and they have it has not gone well. It has been a problem. I'm actually trying to remember now if she has anything to say if you go with her to the hospital, if she's kind of like, I don't want to be in the hospital kind of thing. I feel like there might have been something like if you talk to the receptionist, but maybe I'm just imagining it in my brain and it's not real. But yeah, I'm a little mad that I forgot this bit of evidence because this is interesting. There's some interesting implications on that one. Like doctors even get me. It's funny, but it's also interesting. Okay, long one. I feel that in Deltarune, blood isn't a universal trait. A monster in town questions if it hurts to have blood. However, as others have pointed out, Susie isn't unique in having blood. As well, blood is prominently mentioned in Deltarune's universe as a staple in monster fiction. Their movies and books use blood as a literary device, so monsters have a similar culture with blood as we do in our universe. I think beings with skin and fleshy bodies have blood in Deltarune. However, monsters still most certainly became dust after death. It's a species-defining trait that divides human and monsters. With monsters being so diverse, it is the one unifying fact in Deltarune and Undertale. I do agree that the gap in power is definitely smaller in Deltarune. The soul is surprisingly weak, though has a lot of utility. In terms of strength, Susie and Chris rival each other in damage, and Susie has the added strength of magic. In Deltarune, it seems that Darkners lack innate strength compared to Lightners. This difference between Deltarune and Undertale opens up a lot of questions about monster physiology that was concrete in Undertale. Do monsters age in a constant progression like humans? Toriel and Asgore don't act like centuries-old monsters. Is there such a thing as boss monsters in Deltarune? Questions that, until Susie bled, quite prominently so, open the door for that fans didn't even think to ask. Yeah, I think that's definitely why there was a lot of discussion about it, because, again, what at least Toby has said is that the rules might be different. And I think that is definitely the case. Whether or not they have blood in Deltarune, at the very least, the rules are different. For one thing, I don't think boss monsters exist in Deltarune. Those, again, when we talk about world building, those served a purpose in the story, in that, they let Toriel and Asgore be alive for centuries, so that they're there both for the war and for the story itself. And, it also explains the thing of, like, okay, they age until they have a kid, and then when the kid is gone, they stop aging again. I don't think that's a thing in Deltarune, because it's not necessary for the story. I think monsters just age normally, like humans. Yeah, that was something I mentioned in the video, is the Lancer knows what blood is. Although I did think about the fact that, okay, Lancer might know what blood is because Chris and Asper were the ones apparently playing with the cards and Queen and all that, and that explains why they have that history together, is because this was stuff Chris was playing previously, and so Chris would have that knowledge imprinted onto Lancer, I would say. But yeah, there is another thing that is, it seems like the power gap between humans and monsters is just like not a thing in Deltarune. It was important for Undertale, again, for story and gameplay reasons. And here, the difference is between Lightners and Darkners instead. And since monsters and humans are both Lightners, they seem to just operate the same. There is nothing so far to indicate that monster souls and human souls are different, when that was a major part of Undertale, was that, it takes all of the monsters' souls in the underground to equal one human soul, because human souls are so powerful. No indication that that's the case in Deltarune. They seem to just have the same soul. I kind of wish they would talk about that in the library. The only library book we have so far with the soul is that just talks about the soul in general. It doesn't, and it says we don't know much about it, and it doesn't differentiate between a monster or a human soul. It just says, here's the soul, and it could be a lot of things, but we don't know a lot about it. It's a mystery. There's no talk about the monster and human souls being any different from each other. They seem to, do the same amount of damage, and, can hurt each other the same in the light world. So that probably also explains why there is no human-monster war, because there's nothing to fight over. I honestly don't even think, monster souls and good grief, I've been talking for so long. There's no indication that, a monster can absorb a human soul or vice versa. as a plot point like there was in Undertale. They don't bring it up. And it's especially frustrating because we don't even know what they look like. Like, we can see, monster souls pretty early on in Undertale. The only soul we have seen so far in Deltarune has been the red soul that Chris has. That might not even be a human soul. That might just be us, the demon possessing them, sort of thing, or the angel, whichever way you want to run it. We have nothing to compare it to in the game itself. And, that is interesting but frustrating, because then our only point of comparison is Undertale, and it's clear that those are different. But yeah, that is true also from the beginning that, they bring up blood in their media because we have blood mentioned in the Blood Crusher song in Raise Up Your Bat. Was that written by humans just for humans, or is that also about monsters? Because it could be both. We have Blood Crushers the movie, so it's brought up in books and movies and music and stuff like that. But that would also be another thing that's good to know, is like, okay, is most of this media made by humans who are familiar with blood, or is this made by monsters as well, and it applies to both of them? It could go either way. It's weird. Okay. If Susie is half human, does that mean she's got a human soul? If Susie is half human, does that mean she fills 2/3 parts of the prophecy? Chris wouldn't need to be there if Susie is both human and monster. Again, the question is there any difference between human and monster souls in Deltarune? Not so far. They haven't mentioned anything about them being different, so would she have a human soul? Well, she would have a soul, it seems like. Because they have not made any differentiation. Except, I guess, in the sense of, like, human soul and human parts. And even then, like, okay, what is the difference between them? Like, in what ways are they distinct? Because they haven't specified that yet. So, got half and half? That's a dang good question. I definitely think it could, if she was half human, that could mess with the prophecy in very interesting ways. And if there's nothing else, she is very, very good at messing with the prophecy. So, yeah. And that could also tie back into Susie could potentially take the soul for herself for a bit, although I don't think it's necessary for her to be half human for that. I think that could just happen. Ooh, I think we might be getting close to the end of the comments I saved, because I probably saved only just a few of them. Yeah, I think this is my last one that I saved. This theory is held together by hopes, dreams, and duct tape. And you know what? That might be the case, but I think you'd be surprised how many things in life are also held together with that. It's more things than you'd think. So, to head it off, held together not by much, probably true, but could be narratively interesting. I think that's all I have saved from that. I could go looking in the video itself, but that was just one of the things. That was just what I had saved. To talk about. Like, of course, there's comments that are like, no, it's not true, this sucks, whatever, which, I don't have anything to say about that except, okay. Like, sure, you are welcome to have that opinion. The ones comparing me to Jaru hurt, though. I'm like, no, stab me in the other lung, why don't you? Oof, ouch, that hurts. Yeah, I did get a lot of views. I don't know if it's as many as the, Susie Ron Smog. Oh no. Oh. Piles of half-human dust. Oh. That meme's never gonna die. It's never gonna die. Piles of half-human dust. Oh. I don't even know how that would work. It'd be like little red powder. I don't know. I know, it was just cruel. I was just like, oh no. Stab me in the back. Oh, at the very least, I hope I understand the characters better than that. Even if it's a crack theory, I at least want to get the characters right. Like, I love Susie so much. Like, I was already I already really liked her. Susie dies and become a skeleton. No, like a dinosaur skeleton. A skeleton like Papyrus. No, at the very least, like, again, I love Susie so much as a character, and my love for her just shot through the roof after these chapters. I really, if nothing else, whether or not this theory is right, and there's a extremely good chance it's not, extremely good chance it is not correct, because it is a crack theory. I at least want to be getting her character right. I at least want to be understanding the characters and the themes correctly. I really want to be getting that right, if nothing else. And the reason why this, again, popped into my head is because I thought, okay, this could be really interesting narratively. It could explain some stuff going on with her. Obviously, it is wild in terms of, like, the world building, because it could be that just, hey, monsters. It could indeed, again, the more likely explanation is that monsters just have blood. That's the simpler answer. But I also don't think that's the whole crux of the argument. And I'm interested in why Susie talks about herself the way she does. Why does she feel about herself the way she does? There's things that she is clearly not said yet. And I'd like to know the reasons for why she feels about herself the way she does. I don't think that happened by accident. I don't think people were cruel to her for no reason. Okay. No, people were cruel to her for no reason, because bigotry is not logical. People were cruel, basically, but even though bigotry is not logical, it has justifications. I want to know what justifications people had for being cruel to her, even if those, justifications were bad and wrong, because obviously they were. I love her character so much. I just absolutely love, what they've been doing with her and where she's going. Since the new chapters have come out, I've pretty much been, like, using all my brain power to rotate Susie Deltarune in my head nonstop. I want to be getting her character right. If nothing else, whether or not this theory's right, probably it's not. I want to be getting her character right, and I want to understand, what the story is saying about her, how she contributes to the story, and all this other stuff. I really liked, the stuff that went on with Gerson. I think that was just so good. I'm so happy that we had that whole arc with Gerson and what that implies about her, basically having the white pen of hope. And hey, what's a white writing implement is chalk. Chalk is could be considered a white pen of hope if you cover, the page with ink, as Gerson suggests. You could write on that again with chalk, which is what she has in hand when we first meet her. So I'm excited. Whatever happens in the future, whether or not this theory is correct or not, which, again, very likely it's not. It's a crack theory. I'm excited for, what is going on with her. I hope we get answers to those questions. For whatever she's hiding, because she's still hiding something. There's something else going on. We still got 3 chapters to find out, although I imagine chapter 6 and 7 are going to be so loaded down with, like, the main plot that we're going to have to try and get as much as we can in chapter 5. I feel like it's going to be a very big chapter. Yeah, I will admit, if somehow, if by some miracle, if by some insane miracle, I got this correct, you will not hear the end of it from me. I will explode, and then die, and then those pieces will also explode. The latter reveals that Susie is half annoying dog. No, that's Chris, because we know now that Chris's persona is a dog. We all thought it would be a goat monster, but no, they want to be a puppy. Toby hasn't revealed much. I know. Again, Toby keeps the world building to a minimum. It's only next year. So yeah, while I think the chances of this being true are quite slim, they are less slim than they were before the new chapters. They were, like, super slim. That's why I did the fanfic. So I'm like, okay, this probably won't happen. That they were extremely slim, like super that I don't think it's going to happen before the new chapters. After these ones, I'm like, The slimness has gone down a bit. So that's why I thought, you know what? Screw it. If people can put whatever, wacky theories they want into YouTube, I can do that too. I might as well shoot my shot. The worst thing I can be is wrong. And I've definitely been wrong in the past. Especially if you look at Paper Trail, there was a lot about Paper Trail that was wrong, but it was still fun. It was still fun to put that out there and be this could be interesting. So this very well could be wrong. Probably is wrong, but if it's not wrong, then again I'll explode. And at the very least, then I shot my shot, basically. At the very least, I didn't keep it to myself. And again, apparently you got to do it on YouTube, because that's where people watch stuff. That's where people pay attention. But oh well. Again, the worst thing that can happen is that I'm wrong. Not Eldertrune though. Eldertrune is definitely an AU. That if anything from Eldertrune is 100% true and factual. Okay, if anything from Eldertrune somehow ends up in canon, I'm gonna be like, wait, what the hell has happened? What's going on? Oh my goodness, sorry. I've been yapping so much. I might have to stop soon. We are all at the mercy of Toby. We are all at the mercy of Tricky Tony. I know, one of Carol sacrificing Des in the end was true, and Eldertrune predicted that. I don't know what I'd do. Oh my goodness. Except for her, she's gonna die in Eldertrune. Bad Mother of the Year. I'm quite certain that Carol has a lot of nuance. Because, it's the Toby Fox character. They all do. I want her to keep that nuance, but I also want her to stay a huge bitch. Because, it's fun. It's super fun when you have a character that's okay, they've got reasons, they've got nuance, they've got complexities, but also they just get to be a huge bitch. I want her to stay a really unlikable villain. Because I think it'll be really fun. She can have miles and miles of depth. I just want her to be unlikable, because it's fun to have an unlikable character. You can do so many cool things with that. I know Asgore could be right. Carol could be nice. Asgore, oh no, that meme. Asgore could be correct. I think Asgore has really got to work on his delivery if that's the case, because he's literally got the Grinch face. It'd be horribly monstrous. She does have the Grinch face. It's the big jowls. It's not jowls, whatever those are. Morally grave wives. Maybe she's nice, but I'm still gonna blame Asgore for not stepping in when she was just being the worst to Susie. I'm like, dude, you were just sitting there on the couch doing nothing. Oh, she's fine. She was not fine right then there, dude. You gotta pick up on that. It's the weird nose, it is. It's that Chuck Jones style nose. They don't really have much deer faces. They all kind of have that long, weird long face. Asgore bystander theories. Long distance from nose to mouth. It usually gives you a lot of space to have a really big mouth movement, but even then their mouth movements are not that big. They got big. I forget the name of that part of your mouth that the little line that goes from your nose to your mouth. That has a name. I forget what it's called. But yeah, it'll be fun. I wouldn't even say that's a snout, because the snout should include the nose. Usually a snout is everything from between the eyes to the chin. I would say this is specifically talking about the space from bottom of the nose to the top of the lip. That's pretty big. Snout should be the whole bottom half of your face. I don't know my face words either. I don't know any face words. But yeah, it's fun to theorize in the meanwhile. And I know that there are people that don't like this. That's totally fine. God, face anatomy. I need to practice my face anatomy. there are people that don't like this, and that's fine. Like, I would be a huge hypocrite if I said, no, you have to like this, because there are some theories that are super popular that I'm like, I don't like this, I think this is kind of, boring or bad, or doesn't fit. So people wanted to say this is boring or bad, it doesn't fit. That is totally within your rights. That kind of thing is subjective. And there's people who are like, I do not like this, and I'm like, that's fine. I didn't post those comments because I don't have anything to say other than, yep, that's your opinion, and it's fine to have that. It's happening to Carol. Is Carol liking Noel more in the weird route because she becomes more submissive, controllable, and less how she normally is? That would be really upsetting. Yeah, if Carol's like, oh, Noel, you're acting more like how I want you to act in the weird route. That would be really upsetting. Outside of Half-Human Susie, what's a theory that you want to be true? Okay, like I mentioned, I want it to be true that Susie's going to take the soul at some point. Through her own volition. That's one I think would be really interesting if that happened. One that I don't want to be true, but I think is going to be true, is Chris is going to lose a hand. I feel like there's a scary amount of foreshadowing towards that, and I actually think those two ideas might be connected. I'm scared that Chris is going to lose their hand. I feel like we've got some serious foreshadowing for that now that's been pointed out, and I'm like, Chris unable to play piano angst though. I know, I'm so scared. But there's so much story potential there, and especially like if Chris unable to play the piano because they lose a hand, then the statement, which seems like the correct statement of will you play again? I will if you play with me. Like, we could end with like 3-hand duet with Noel or Susie and Chris playing together, and Chris is able to play together with her, and Noel listens, and that, like, you see the vision. I saw people mention that. I think it was Biskia mentioned that, and I'm like, oh no, I can see that. It'll make me cry. It'll absolutely make me cry. So I can totally see that happening, and even though I don't want it to happen because it's going to be horrible, I also kind of want it to happen just because I know it will just hit so hard if we get that kind of moment after Chris losing a hand and then being carried forward by their friends. Because he misread Susie and Chris. I think Rosso should get to smoke a joint, and also just because I think that ties into stuff with what Toby himself has talked about in terms of his problems with his own hand. And this is something that I absolutely understand because I have problems with my own hand, where the thing I love to do has injured me, and then I have to be really careful, and I can't do it as much or as hard as I'd want because it literally, like, physically hurts me. And he's gone through the exact same thing where he, hurt his wrist. And I know in some of the newsletters he's talked about, how hard that is, and how, you feel like you have a broken wing and you can't fly, but, there's people there to be with you and to help you, and that you can fly even if you've, broken a wing, sort of thing. I could just really see that being reflected in Chris losing a hand, losing something that's really important, their autonomy. But even though something has been broken, they're still able to be carried forward by their friends. I think that would be really, really meaningful. If that happens, I am going to cry. I think that would hit really hard, and I can absolutely see that happening. Sorry, I was talking away and I missed the stuff about Sans. Let me see. Chapter 4, ruining things for Sans. He learned to read people because of how fundamentally he misread Susie and Chris and led to something worse. Yeah, I could definitely see that, like, Sans is in a place. Didn't he describe his first job posting for Deltarune as his hand? A little bit. He basically, one of the job posting for Deltarune is like, can somebody be my wrist for me, please? Which I totally understand. I absolutely, again, I'm in the same position of injuring yourself through doing what you love. But yeah, it would be very interesting also for Sans if, he was just really carefree and didn't really think about how his actions affected other people. Because why would he? He's just having a grand old time with Toriel over here. misreads what, how his actions affect people like Chris and Susie after they've had, a horrible day. And it's not until he, is cut off from these people, taken, however he gets to the Undertale universe, now has all these regrets that he can't do anything about because he's been cut off from those people. And only now does he learn, like, how to read people properly and how to kind of have a better understanding of, you're taking too long. A cry for help. Oh, I feel that. I feel the you're taking too long thing. That's literally me with Eldritch. I'm like, oh, this is taking so long. It's been months since I've gotten out another part. I gotta do it. I gotta get to it, but I can't push myself too much, or I'll hurt my hand again, and I have to take care of this, and I have to take care of that, and the you're taking too long. I feel that on a spiritual level, and I'm pretty sure Toby does too, where like you know what you want to do, you know what you want to do. You're desperate to share it with people, but you have to go through the process of actually doing it. You can't shortcut it. And especially nowadays, people just expect things instantaneously. It really does feel like it's taking forever when, even though you have to take your time with it. You have to go through the process of it because that's how it becomes good. But I absolutely understand Toby's feelings on that. I came out when I was trying to finish the writing thing. That's like a month overdue. Oh, yeah. That is something that I kind of wish that people understood more about art. Is that, yeah, you can't rush it. It takes time. No matter what kind of art you're doing, whether it's amateur or professional, or it's silly theory video or a comic or a fan game or any of the other stuff, because the fandom is so talented. You can't rush it. You have to take your time with it, and there's kind of this inherent frustration in that, because again, you know what you want to do, but you have to actually do it to do it. I just had the "you're taking" tab up to motivate me. Oh. Imagine this is it's especially hard if you have like a ADHD or anything else that's like, mentally kind of blocking you from getting through something you want to do. So, Let's see. I'm trying to think of any other theories that I want to be true. I'm pretty set on Dess's ADHD. I'm sorry. I'm pretty set on Dess's the Knight. I think that's I know the choices between Carol and Des right now. I think it's Des. I think that's the both more logical and more interesting answer. Asriel, yeah, I buy that. Asriel next chapter. I think Asriel's coming home next chapter. We've been told he'll be back for the festival. The festival is tomorrow. It is now next week. They said he'll be back next week. Honestly, I think it'll just be a question of, are we seeing him at the beginning of the chapter or the end? I think it could go either way. But yeah, I do think we're going to see Asriel next chapter. Is there a real Mike? Suzelle Kiss next chapter. Crossing fingers. There better be. 3 whole chapters of Asriel. How fast can Asriel drive, and how recklessly? You all thought it was Asgore running over Des. No, it was Asriel. That would be really what an interesting start to chapter 5 it would be if, like, we hear like an unfamiliar voice telling Chris, "Hey Chris, wake up," and then the chapter starts with like Asriel in Chris's room being like, "Hey, I'm back." People will be like, "What?" People will go nuts. Bro, don't miss the festival. Also depends, is the festival like one day or multiple days? Each chapter of the game is also one day except for chapter 3, which was overnight. No, they do say that he's coming back next week, and basically, if the timeline is correct, chapter 1 is on Thursday. Basically, chapter 1 is on Thursday, then it's the next day, chapter 2 is Friday, then chapter 3 is Friday night, and then chapter 4 is Saturday, because they say that it's Saturday and it's also church. So basically right now, chapter 4 is on Saturday, so the next day should be Sunday. Yeah. So basically it would start as next week, starting tomorrow. Sunday the start of the week. This is not a revelation, yeah. So Boston. The bubbler. I can't believe we used the bubbler. Yeah, and Asgore implies, Asriel's going to be here for the festival. He seems very, very set on, if I just fix everything, Asriel will see that things are cool and my family will be back together again. Well, she didn't say start in the week. She says Asriel will be here next week. Ram is the only British one because Ram is a British plug, I guess. And the funny thing is that everybody thought that Sans has the Boston accent because he says stuff like a Brooklyn accent because he's like, forget about it. He has like a Brooklyn accent. So Sans is the only one with the New England accent, or somewhere in the New England area. Maybe he moved from New York. I'm close to New York. Noel's thirsty in more ways than one. True. So, yeah, I do think it's quite possible, and in fact even likely, that Asriel will be showing up next chapter because it technically counts as next week, which is when Toriel said that he would be coming. She says, I hope it doesn't rain when he comes. We had rain today. It was kind of a big deal. Asgore says he'll be back for the festival. The festival starts tomorrow. Oh my god, Chris, what is that thing in the parking lot? Jersey Paps. True. We're gonna finally get to Papyrus. He's not half human, but he is from Jersey, and that will throw everybody for a loop. Like, what is this accent? Thought he boy just pointed in a coin. He is voiced by Tony Soprano. That's why they've been hiding Papyrus from us. It's not that he's human. It's that he just has an insane Jersey accent, and nobody can take it seriously. Chris is like, I can't take you seriously, dude, your accent. Papyrus is like, well, I guess I'll go back into my closet of shame again. Because I can't help it, I'm from Jersey. Oh, that'd be funny. Jersey people are the real monsters. The Jersey Shoreness. Oh my goodness. Let's see. I'm trying to think if there's any other theories. Like, what are the big theories right now? It was like, oh, this is definitely going to happen in later chapters, or should happen in later chapters. I think it's pretty well set that next chapter's Dark World is going to be in the Flower King, which will be interesting. The Jersey Devil. Indeed. Jersey Devil is just a guy, just a monster. The Jersey Devil was Papyrus all along. He was just a funny skeleton, as opposed to the actual Jersey Devil. Chris is the vessel theory? Oh good grief. That would be Paper Trail coming all the way back to bite me all the way over again. I guess the issue is that Chris cannot be, as we all know, by Leaf. Thank you, Leaf. Again, my one question on that is that if Chris is a vessel, they are not the vessel. They are not the vessel that we picked because we picked something that is Chris's age. Chris has clearly been living with the Dreamers for a long time, so this would have to be like, I don't know, 4 or 5 year old vessel, which it raises other questions. The soul is possessing the severed hand. Ugh. It'd be like the MST3K episode, The Crawling Hand. Rare times it's a convenience. You haven't a half for this jack and shit. Hollow Knight levels of plot here. We can do it. There's no stopping Tricky Tony. Yeah, there are some weird lines like the when did you start being yourself kind of thing. But basically, Chris would have to have been young. That they would have to be capable of growing because it's clear that they have a whole history there. Which then again raises a whole bunch of questions. Who's out here making like a 4-year-old human vessel, and why? Yeah, that line is what does that mean? What are you doing, narrator? mysterious narrator that is probably nobody because, we don't have evidence of them being anybody except, I'll imagine the narrator's desk. Good grief. Thoughts on why all the Titan flavor text is like surprise past tense. So weird. It's so weird. Oh, the Titan fight was so cool, but so weird. Her warm interpretation of the lines about the Titan spawn gaining consciousness, but the narrator never speaks like that. Also, I guess Rousey says, they don't really have consciousness. They're just forces of nature. I'll be sorry. I'm sorry. I don't like time loop theory. I don't like it. I don't think that's what's being said. I think we're saying lots of interesting things about, reinterpreting things. I don't think things have literally happened before and we're experiencing them again. We are halfway through the game and there's not really any indication that this has all happened before. Even in Undertale, you can they very quickly give you hints that you're basically trapped in a time loop, and here are indications of it, you look like you've seen a ghost sort of thing, or you look like you've done this before. Even characters that are not aware of it will comment on you're trapped in a time loop. 4 chapters in, there's really nothing to indicate this has all happened before. I don't like time loop theory. I don't want that one to be real. I want this to be about, how fiction is handled. Okay, the Silent Hill remake put references to it being a time loop. I'm so mad about it. Oh no, I didn't realize there was that in Silent Hill 2. What would be the point of that? It doesn't make sense. Anyways. I wonder if Rousey was lying about that lack of consciousness. Maybe, but I don't see what the point would be with lying about that. Because if I feel like if we could defeat it with mercy, then Rousey would absolutely say to do so. The fact that Rousey is no, heckin' kill it, go and attack it, please. When the rest of the time he is please, let's be nice. Please, we don't want to attack our enemies. Please, let's try and make this turn out better. I think it's kind of saying something that he is no, don't bother, just please hit it. I don't think he's lying about the lack of consciousness. I think he's definitely we know he's been hiding things. I don't know why he would lie about it not being conscious. I'm not sure to what end. There are weird things going on. Basically, what I find weird is I don't understand why we're seeing Titan spawn in those dark areas before we even get to the Titan. I was like, what is this Titan spawn doing chasing us? Hence that Rousey's pacifism is just his attempt at changing fate. I don't think you need a time loop to do that. I think with all the other stuff, he is also does not like where the prophecy is going and is I'm going to try and change this by having things be nice. By having us be nice. Maybe we can avoid this by doing this. I assumed it was because there were 2 fountains merging into each other. I'm not quite sure what you mean by that. But yeah, basically I don't think you need a time loop to explain how this goes, because it's very, very set and we know exactly what's going to happen because the prophecy says so, and we cannot change the prophecy. That is sufficient enough for people to be okay, let's avoid that, as opposed to this has already happened. What is the part of the prophecy that Susie smashed? We don't know. Yeah, I think it implies things about the prophecy maybe having something to do with violence, weird root style. It is interesting how we have this association with violence and freedom that basically being more, especially with what Ram says with the sword root, is oh, you want freedom, Chris, but for Chris at least, freedom is associated with violence. And this is something that Rousey is also trying to avoid. Yeah. What's the part of the prophecy that Susie smashed? Man, it's so it's so interesting, so frustrating that we everybody knows but us. Unused prophecy in the files detailing frozen water, ice falling from the sky. I think there's so much interesting things going on with water and ice and ink. I'm really happy at least that maybe there's something like a deluge coming, like a flood. But I am glad that I called the idea of like darkness being associated with water in the sense of like if ink, like as a source of imagination, but can also be overwhelming. If Chris knows, either through seeing it elsewhere or getting an angle we didn't, I think either one could be possible, especially if they are in on whatever the knight's doing. I get the feeling that they probably know more about it just by virtue of being in on the night conspiracy. So Rouse definitely knows it. I have a strong feeling that Chris knows it. If they didn't see it themselves, then they know through something going on with the night, because they're clearly in the conspiracy with that. And then obviously Susie saw it and then smashed it before we did. Yeah, assumed it was created from the central fountain but cut off by the door shutting. Yeah, it's interesting how basically if you seal the first sanctuary fountain, it's like pretty small. It's like a little skinnier than normal. And then once we actually get to the normal fountain at the end of third sanctuary, it's like a normal size. It's a skinny fountain. It's like kind of cut off. It's all weird. Whew. We're approaching end of talking time, but yeah, let's see if there's anything else to cover. Yeah, it's smaller. But the first sanctuary one you do is diet soda fountain. Not full flow fountain. Yeah, I'm just not a fan of time loop because I don't think that adds anything that we don't already cover with, fate already being decided and trying to avoid that. And I don't think we have any indication that this has happened before. Knight wasn't trying hard enough. Knight was just like, okay, we can just do a small one. Put a little jab into the ground. Just yeah, probably could have saved a few more comments, but I'm pretty happy with the ones I got. There was a wide variety of comments, and sorry if I didn't get to yours. I just did a whole bunch of different ones that for stuff I wanted to address. Hopefully I addressed it. Ugh. Oh, I've been talking nonstop for like 2.5 hours. Hopefully I addressed them okay. I'm sure there's stuff I missed, and I'm sure there's stuff that people will disagree on. Because if we all agreed, there wouldn't be a discussion, but that's the fun part. And I am extremely curious to see how it all goes in the future. Again, this theory is a crack theory. Probably not going to happen. But like the 5% or 2% or whatever chance that it does, at least I shooted my shot, and I can be like, yay! I somehow, by some miracle, guessed this. I win the no prize for doing so. I don't know, I would be happy. But either way, I'm excited for whatever's in the future. And I love Susie. And I wish I had a plushie of her to hug. Still considering, like, maybe I should get, like, an Deltarune Susie plush. Something big I can hug. That would be fun, but, that'd be expensive. I should probably start winding down now, since we're out of comments and stuff. But basically, again, the reason why I was doing this today is I wanted to talk about some comments. And also because tomorrow is Deltarune Chapter 3 full story stream with friends. Wah! Like I've done in the past. Basically, I have a couple of friends that I introduce them to Deltarune by streaming it with them. We did that in the past, even though those streams are kind of lost to time. This time, I will be better about it, and they will come and stream with me. They are new to this. They are blind. Yes, it will be a proper friend night tomorrow. Please don't spoil them, because I'm excited to see their reactions to things. We're only going to have time for Chapter 3, because I'm going to do the full story stuff. I honestly don't even know if I'll be able to get through secret bosses. I'm guessing no, because I still haven't beaten the knight. I got to go back and practice that at some point. But I don't even know if I'll be able to get through Mantle. We'll find out. At the very least, I'll try and do most of Sword Root, because there's interesting stuff in there. But even that's going to take a while. So we're just going to focus on the story. and do voices and, you know, have their thoughts and have a good time. So that will be tomorrow. And then hopefully with the chapter 3 cliffhanger, I can get them back for chapter 4 soon. If we can arrange our schedules. That's the trick of it, is arranging schedules. But yes, that's tomorrow. I'll probably be starting at like 4 my time, so earlier than 7:30 because we have a lot to get through. Yeah, best night yet. Friend night tomorrow. And then no art stream on Sunday because I am doing, I'll be busy with something else for some union stuff. Oh, beat night yet? No, I have not beat night. That's the problem. I gotta try and do it. I still haven't done it. I've been busy. I gotta get back to it. I gotta try again. Not even on stream. I should just do it to have a file on hand of, okay, I've beaten the night, got me the shard and shadow mantle and all, you know, the crystal and all that stuff, shadow crystal. I still need to do it. I'll do it at some point. I am determined I will do it at some point, even if it's not on stream. But it'll probably not happen tomorrow unless there's just a total miracle and I magically played perfectly. I'm just not expecting that to happen. Maybe if they're interested, I'll give it a shot, but I don't expect it to happen tomorrow. Someday I will beat the night. I just gotta keep trying until I do it, because I need to practice more. And then, again, no art stream on Sunday, because I'll be busy, but I will probably do some art streams more regularly next week, because, again, I'm working on some Deltarune, and I want to make progress on that. Plus, I gotta open commission soon. So, whew, that is the deal for the future. So look out for that tomorrow. It'll be really fun. I'm excited to have my friends experience chapter 3 because it'll be crazy and fun. And I hope you guys will be there for that at some point. It'll be a long stream, so just sometime in the afternoon, evening. And it'll be super fun. But yes, thank you guys for listening through me blabbing through all of these comments. I should probably go rest my voice now. So that's been a lot of talking, and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, this has been really fun. And you know what? I'm glad I did this video. I'm glad that I took the time out for it and tried something new. Even though I think people probably like the comics more, it's still fun to try a new thing. And again, if nothing else, the worst thing I can be is wrong. Yeah, thank you. I'm glad I did it. Yeah, Again, thinking about it, I'm like, what's the worst that can happen? I'm wrong. What's the coolest thing that could happen? Something really cool. Might as well try for the cool thing. And we'll see what happens. Anyways, yep, I need to go and drink a whole lot of water and prepare for fun times tomorrow. Thank you guys so much for coming to this very, very different stream and just chatting with me. It's fun to just chat about the stuff too. I know I do in art streams, but it's fun to just focus on the chatting. Ugh, and the yapping and yapping. Anyways, I hope that you guys have a wonderful weekend. I hope I'll see some of you all tomorrow. Oh, you guys are awesome. Thank you for being here. Thank you guys for talking and being awesome. I super appreciate it. You all are so cool. You guys are super cool. Thank you for being super cool. I hope you guys have lovely days because you deserve lovely days. If you can't make it, then of course there will be a VOD later. Either ways, I hope some people can make it because it'll be really fun. I'm excited for friends to voice some certain characters. I'm sure you know who I'm talking about once we get there. Anyways, yeah, it is time for me to collapse into bed and then do all that madness tomorrow. So thanks for listening to me talk about comments and theories and all that good stuff. And I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. And yeah, I will see you all next time. Alrighty. And good night.